The Ashlands is an unforgiving, war-torn biome that can test even the most battle-hardened Vikings. In this guide, I'm going to go over how to safely make initial landfall in the Ashlands and secure a base. I will also cover how to easily dispatch any enemies you may come across when you first arrive in the Ashlands, and how to survive and thrive in the Ashlands with the help of a tamed Asksvin army. And lastly, I'll go over how to make your first Ashlands Armor Set and exploit it by combining it with the tried and true Fenris Armor, giving you essentially speed hacks to run fast past any enemies and explore the Ashlands with ease. Let's go! So before we head out to the Ashlands in our giant Drakkar boat, we need to prepare for our epic adventure. Let's start with gear. Magic is king in the Ashlands, especially when you first enter the biome. So bring your Interweave robes and you can summon 2 skeletons with the Dead Razor, then shield you and your undead party with the Staff of Protection. The skeletons are pretty squishy, but with a blood shield they survive a bit longer and can buy you crucial time as a distraction. Then use the Staff of Embers to take down enemies at range, and the Staff of Frost to ice your enemies up close. You are really squishy as a magic user, so make sure to prioritize keeping your protection bubble up at all times, and strategic positioning is key, which means use the high ground, like Obi-Wan taught you. Also, use the Feather Cape as it's really useful for traversing the Ashlands terrain, and the fire weakness nerf is negligible compared to its benefits. It may be beneficial to make an extra Feather Cape and Staff of Protection to make death runs smoother if you have extra materials. You are also going to want the best foods you can craft. I suggest 2 magic foods, the stuffed mushrooms, seeker aspic, or Yggdrasil porridge if you have it, plus 1 high HP food like roasted chicken. Also bring some meads for fire resistance, lingering stamina, and Aether and HP restoration. The only boat advisable to use to sail to the Ashlands is the aforementioned Drakkar, because it can survive the burning waters of the Ashlands. But it is progression locked behind killing the Queen, and using the Queen's majestic carapace drop to upgrade your artisan table with the artisan press. Then you'll be able to craft ceramic plates at the artisan table with black marble, a key item used to craft the Drakkar. You'll also need 100 iron nails, 50 fine wood, and 25 Yggdrasil wood. The boat has a ton of HP and storage for all the supplies we are bringing. Speaking of supplies, let's go over those now. You're going to need a hoe and a lot of stone, which you can store in the boat's giant storage. I suggest at least 8 to 10 stacks of stone. You are also going to need to make a few crafting tables and a stone cutting table or 2, so bring 4 to 5 stacks of wood minimum, just in case you need to build a temporary base with it as well. And about 12 to 20 iron bars. The reason we need so many iron bars is we will want to make the new shield generator structure once you land in the Ashlands to keep your wood structure safe from the firestorms. The shield generators also require 5 copper each, so bring 10 to 15 copper total so you can set up a few bases. You will also need a shield core, which requires a black core and a surtling core and 5 ceramic plates to craft at the upgraded artisan table. Also bring a stack of bones to power your shield generators. You will also want to bring the materials to build 2 to 3 portals, because I like to set up a few bases while heading into the Ashlands, to mitigate any issues that could arise if you die. Also, set up a portal at your base named like Ashlands or Ash 1, so when you make a portal in the Ashlands, it will have a portal ready to link to at your base. Before we set sail, I want to cover my biggest tip for the Ashlands, and you'll hear me say it throughout this guide, but take it super slow. I didn't die in my first 10 hours in the Ashlands following the strats I cover in this guide. Preparation is super important. Upgrade all your weapons as much as you can. Armor isn't as important when it comes to a magic build, but I can't say it enough. Always keep your protection bubble up and some potions on you, as the Ashlands ask you to use your full kit of gear and supplies at your disposal. Now that you are fully prepared, it's time to set sail directly south to the Ashlands. I recommend aiming for the center of your Ashlands biome, as that's normally where the biggest island is located, which will have the most points of interest to explore without having to sail to another island. You'll know you reach the Ashlands when you see the blood-red boiling water and the spires jutting out. You may also be greeted by the scary serpent known as the Bonemaw, but don't worry, he's not too much of a threat with this strategy. Firstly, make sure to move slow with your boat and steer near one of the spires I mentioned earlier. Now build a crafting table on the side of the spire. Now you can take your time and use your Staff of Frost or another ranged weapon to kill the serpent while periodically repairing your boat. Be careful if you jump in the water, because the water in the Ashlands does damage over time, and it does more damage the further south you are on the map. You may also get attacked by these flying turkeys known as vultures. These creatures are also easily dispatched by using the Staff of Frost. Just make sure to aim at them up high so your boat doesn't catch stray ice shards. Now continuing south on through the spires, I recommend you use the slowest speed of your boat most of the time while navigating the Ashlands' tumultuous waters. I found turning the boat in reverse to be a faster and easier means to control the boat. Before we even think about heading to shore, I suggest making what I call a just-in-case base in one of these cool ruins near the shore. Or if there isn't any ruins, you can make do with a spire, but I highly suggest using a ruin if you can. Use some of the wood we brought to add a floor and place one of your portals. If you place a few layers of wood floor above the portal, they will burn in firestorms first instead of the portal, buying you some time. You could even use one of your shield generators here if you brought a lot of metal bars, but most of the time it's not needed because we won't be around this base often. It's just a contingency base. Now that we have our first portal set up in the Ashlands, it's time to get nearer to the shore and do some recon on the enemy situation. Make sure not to get too close to the shore or enemies can get to your boat, but if you set up a workbench like we talked about earlier, you should be fine if an enemy gets under your boat. Maybe try jumping to a spire or ruins to get a better angle under your boat, but I'm getting ahead of myself. With your boat floating a safe distance offshore, start taking out enemies with your Staff of Embers. If you see these obelisks with red smoke, focus on them first because these spawn the main enemy of the Ashlands, known as the Charred. These are angry Terminator skeleton guys that will fuck up your day if they hit you. The Charred come in different variations from melee to ranged, and if you see one of these big guys with their innards hanging out, these are known as the Morgan. I suggest finding a new beach. It's his beach. We are not ready to fight a Morgan just yet. Once you found a good lightly populated beach and killed all the enemies, wait and observe the spawn rates, because in Ashlands certain areas appear to spawn mobs more frequently. Like the first beach I approached kept spawning more and more charred skeletons like I never had destroyed the spawner. But further down the beach, after I killed the enemies, none respawned after a few minutes, so this is where I decided to call home. Now it's time to land on the beaches of Normandy, Ashlands, and the first thing you're going to want to focus on is getting a workbench down, then raising the ground with your hoe, and making a nice sized stone plateau to set up your first base. It's also good to dig into your plateau a bit, so the sides stick up so they can offer you some protection from ranged enemy attacks. Once your plateau is finished, set up your shield generator and portal. This plateau is OP because it's safe from most-ish mobs in the Ashlands, with the exception of a few, which I'll go over now, starting with fire blobs. If you see these, run up to them and trigger their explode animation, then sprint away so they explode away from your plateau base, because they are the only creature that can do damage to your plateau. The Morgan will actually help you kill enemies by rolling over them while trying to get to you. Vultures can also reach you up here, but they are fairly easy to kill, and the only other creature that could potentially reach you is the Fallen Valkyrie, but I found these tend to spawn more inland, so they shouldn't be a problem on the beach. The rest of the enemies, like Charred, Asksvins, and Morgans, can easily be dispatched from the safety of your plateau. Focus on the Charred archers as they hit hard, but don't have much HP, and can probably hit you from time to time even on your plateau. You can also make a few smaller stone pillars away from your base. I affectionately call these oh shit pillars, because you can run to them for safety when the shit hits the fan, and it inevitably will in the Ashlands, I guarantee it. Now that you've survived and got a foothold in the Ashlands, it's time to tame some Askvin and start thriving in the Ashlands with an Asksvin army. I'm going to give a quick overview on how to find and tame Askvins, but for a more in-depth tutorial, check out my Askvin guide. Okay, first dig 2 holes near each other, a few dozen feet outside your base. These are going to be our Askvin traps, so make them fairly deep so the Askvins don't jump out, about 3 times the player height should do. You will also need a harpoon for this process to pull the Askvin into the trap. Now go inland and find an Askvin. It's fairly easy to find a 1-star Askvin even during the day, and they have twice as much HP as a no-star Askvin, so I highly suggest taking the time to find and tame a 1-star Askvin. And after getting more established in the Ashlands, you can go after the beefy 2-star Askvin at night. Once you've located your desired Askvin, lead it back to your traps, but be careful as you lead the Askvin because they hit hard and can even knock you in the lava. So use debris or ruins you can to line of sight the Askvin's attack. Once you lead it back to your traps, harpoon it, then drag the beast into the hole. Now go and catch one more Askvin in the other hole so you have a breeding pair. It doesn't need to be a 1-star Askvin, any old Askvin will do. Side note, any dwarf friends you encounter will attack an untamed Askvin, so keep that in mind. Once trapped, feed your Askvins one of the 3 Ashlands plants: smoke puffs, vineberry clusters, or fiddleheads. I've found these the easiest to find and collect around the old ruins scattered across the Ashlands. Throw down 7 to 10 food items for each Askvin, or more if you can spare it, then wait around 30 minutes until you see the Askvin has been tamed confirmation message. And you'll notice their health bars go from red to green. You will need a workbench nearby so the food items don't despawn. While the Askvins are taming, build a stone earth wall around your Askvin to protect them. And once tamed, connect their holes so each of the Askvin can reach each other to breed. To breed, they'll just need more of the 3 food items we covered earlier. You'll see hearts above their heads, and eventually they will lay eggs. You'll want to wait for them to lay 2 1-star Askvin eggs indicated by the number in parentheses. For example, this 2 means it's a 1-star Askvin. Alright, it's time to make an Askvin farm. Once you get 2 eggs, take them back to your base and set up a simple Askvin enclosure or 2, with a fire nearby, because Askvin eggs are similar to chicken eggs and need the warm status effect to hatch. If you see an egg with sparkles coming off it, it's an easy way to tell your Askvin egg is too cold to hatch and will need to be placed closer to the fire source. After 30 minutes, your Askvin eggs will hatch into an Askvin calf. Look how cute it is. And after 50 more minutes, your Askvins will grow into adults. Repeat this cycle until each of your enclosures have 4 Askvins. Then put out the fire so the eggs stop hatching. I just made a simple tall box enclosure about 2 by 3 walls wide and 3 walls high. And honestly, it seemed to generate eggs faster than the automatic farm I built, but you have to pick up the eggs in the more manual design. Our goal with this process is to collect around 40 to 80 Askvin eggs, so keep feeding your Askvins fiddleheads and smoke puffs, or even set up a vineberry vine at your base and feed them vineberries until you have an army of eggs. This honestly doesn't take as long as you think. I believe it took me 2 to 3 hours to breed my first batch of 60 eggs after establishing the breeder. Now that we have our army of eggs, it's time to make what I call the Askvin popcorn popper, because once it's built and they all grow up, they burst out of the top like popcorn. It's awesome. They start taking over turf in the Ashlands. So no doubt you've come across a lot of the Ashland stone known as Groston. We are going to use this to make our Askvin popper, near the base we set up earlier. Let's start with the floors. I usually like to make mine 2 wide by 3 floor pieces long. Then set up the walls 2 high all the way around except for one of the shorter sides. Then put a nice floor roof on the top. And on the side you left open should be faced towards where you want the Askvin to pour out. So build some big barn doors and some smaller walls to cover the gaps on the sides. I normally use the wood stake walls. Now place a fire next to the Askvin popper so the eggs will hatch. You can place 2 roof pieces above the fire to protect it, but not too close or the fire will be extinguished. Also put some walls around the opening of your Askvin popper like this, to direct them out of your base. You can also raise your Askvin popper if it needs to go over a wall, or put a ramp inside to get the Askvins up and over your wall. It's a pretty versatile concept. You just need a big hot room for your Askvin to safely grow to adulthood. Man, that was a weird sentence. Now, just throw as many Askvin eggs as you can spare in the new Askvin popcorn popper. The more the better, as there is safety in numbers in the Ashlands, and your Askvin army will survive a lot longer the larger the army. And throw the eggs one at a time, because they can't grow in a stack, which will also be indicated by the sparkles. Now you just gotta wait for the eggs to hatch and the calves to grow to adults, which takes about an hour and 20 minutes total. You don't have to wait around near the Askvins for the timer to pass. You just gotta check in on them at each stage of growth. So check in on the eggs after 30 minutes to trigger them to hatch, and then again 50 minutes later for them to grow into adults. And once all the Askvin become adults, they will start pouring out of the Askvin popper by the dozens. If any get stuck, you can turn on friendly fire and harpoon them out of the structure. Slowly your Askvins will spread out and make the area around your base fairly safe. And later, once you make an Askvin saddle, you can use these beasts as disposable adventure buddies to get across the Ashlands. They can even traverse across lava safely. You can also slaughter a few of your Askvins or loot the ones that died in battle of their drops. The hides are used for making all 3 of the new armor sets, but the Asksvin Armor Set is especially easy to make because the Askvin hide is the only Ashlands drop you need to make the full main Asksvin Armor Set, by combining it with Lox hides and linen at the Black Forge. When wearing the 3 main pieces of the Asksvin armor, you are granted a set bonus called Ask's Endurance, which reduces your stamina usage for running, jumping, and attacking, and adds 10% pierce damage. This is honestly my go-to armor set when just working around my base. The stamina reduction for actions just feels good, and the armor rating is good enough for the starting biomes. There's also a 4th piece of armor for this set that's not technically required for the set bonus, but has some cool attributes of its own. The Askvin cloak is crafted at the Galder table, and does take another Ashlands drop from Morgans, known as the Morgan Sinew, but don't worry, Morgans are pretty easy to kill by cheesing them with magic while standing safely on an oh shit pillar. And the cape is a really good item to explore the Ashlands with, because the ability it grants you called Windwalk, which allows you to run faster with the direction of the wind. But what it doesn't tell you is in storms the wind moves faster, and in turn the cape gives you an even more increased speed buff. It basically gives you Halo 2 modded Xbox speed hacks, and if you pair this with the Fenris set, you are literally the Flash, albeit a squishy one. So don't get hit, but also pair this armor set with stamina food, lingering stamina meads, and the Eikthyr buff, and you can run for literal days like Forrest Gump, which can be a great strat for exploring the Ashlands. Again, just don't get hit, always run. Your Askvin army herd will die over time, so it's good to grow more batches of Askvins periodically to keep your army stocked up. And as you explore more of the Ashlands, you can set up more Askvin poppers and take over more of the Ashlands. One of the ultimate and super safe places to make a base in the Ashlands is one of these cool new fortresses, but we'll save that for the next video, where I go over the easiest, cheesiest method for sieging a charred fortress. Thank you so much for watching. If the guide helped you out at all, please leave a like, and if you want to see more game guides like this, please subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Have a wonderful day. Peace! Yes, it was me, Marcus. I was there, and I pushed you into the spawner while you were AFK leveling your blood magic, and I kind of regret it. I feel bad. Sorry, buddy.